The Jungle was America's largest homeless encampment in San Jose, right in the heart of Silicon Valley. After its closing, and with no housing available or enough shelter beds, the community saw a huge increase of unhoused in the streets, with literally nowhere to go. A documentary, Exodus from the Jungle, was made about the closing and its aftermath. It raised awareness to the plight of the unhoused in a way that many hadn't known before. After viewing the film, faith communities started a dialogue of what they, as people of faith, could specifically do.
It would be okay if I just died out there in the street. Nobody would know, nobody would care. And here, they really worry about you, and they want you to succeed, and they want to love you, and they do. And it's so much I can barely explain it. It's blessing to all blessings.
That I was part of a group working on various service projects, and we had an opportunity to host a movie, Exodus from the Jungle, in partnership with the Housing for All Alliance. We were able to invite several churches in to come see it, and afterwards we had a brainstorming session about how the movie had affected us and what things we thought as members of faith communities we might be able to do.
The whole community started ramping up about El Nino and about the coming rains and what that would mean for the homeless community. And so that seemed to gather enough community attention and enough attention among the churches to come together and work out a plan. And we were privileged to host the Interfaith Collaborative meetings.
From that, the idea of the Interfaith Collaborative came out with that as one of its goals, sheltering both overnight for daytime use and also safe parking.
As the interest in that grew and more churches came together to talk about what they could do, none of them could really pull this off on their own. But together, it began to seem possible that something could happen.
What was neat was a lot of people were able to find their own comfort zone. Some congregations didn't have the right property or didn't have the right facilities or comfort level in their community to host people on site, but they were able to bring food or support with volunteers on other sites, and so a lot of people were able to sort of cross boundaries that way.
And so the collaborative is well named. It is a collaborative, and so we began to see our way forward. That was the moment where it just all kind of fell into place and made sense for us, that this was our calling, this was our ministry, this is what God was wanting us to do in San Jose.
"55 faith communities were engaged. 16 opened their doors, offering overnight shelters, daytime drop-in centers, and safe car parks. 258 guests were served. 38,000 individual meals were provided. Over 1,600 volunteers participated, with over 54,000 volunteer hours put in.
It really is a gift, I think, of hospitality and compassion and kindness, and not everybody has that in this day and age. Or, I don't know, maybe people just think, tragedy or crisis, isn't going to come to my doorstep, and yet things happen every day, just, snap of a finger. So I'm appreciative of those people who are empathetic and understand that, sometimes you need some help.
I can speak to what it did for our congregation. We have had teams go down every other year to Mexico to build housing. And so, in a sense, those faraway mission trips were the first step in really opening our eyes to see the need that was right outside our door. It's unfortunate, but churches often have to leave their comfort zone and go someplace far away in order for their consciousness to be raised about issues. They wanted to live their faith more day by day. And the need for housing was just as great in San Jose as it was in Tijuana.
I'm all for, the communities in, this county to become more aware of the homelessness issue, and it can happen for all kinds of reasons. People being forced out of their homes because the rent's being raised and they can't afford to stay there. In my case, it happened to be a cancer diagnosis, and I was unable to work, having surgery and chemotherapy and being sick. And I've had to, stay, with family or friends.
But I think the best thing that we had happen was watching the parishioners change. They changed. You watched them change. At first they're thinking, oh, this is just something that I have to do. I have to do this because my conscience says I must. And then they started to see that these are human beings. And they changed. They changed an awful lot. And some of these men were so intelligent, engaging, had held positions of responsibility. And for one or another reasons, these people were down and out on their luck, but very, very good to us and very thankful for what we were able to do.
They welcome you no matter what your gender is, no matter what your ethnicity is or your religious background. They help you even bring God into your life if it was a strain because you're out there with no hope, no goals, no love at all. You feel very worthless, and they really make you feel you are worth something and that people do care about you.
I signed up for this middle of the night, 1 to 6 a.m. Slot. And when my husband found out that I was doing it, he signed up too. And when a friend asked him why he signed up, and he said it was because my wife is so busy, I never get to talk to her, and this way I get to sit and talk to her all night long. That gave us some really special time together. I've just become very aware of who they are. I'm much more apt to now walk up to someone who's asking for something and saying, what's your story? How can I help? And giving some money for their meal for that day. I'm finding that I'm more generous in those situations and just wanting to find permanent solutions. Having 4,000 people in the San Jose area homeless is really an embarrassment to our country. We're one of the richest counties in the whole country, and I really think that we need to work on those issues.
I start my job tomorrow, but the bottom line is I won't be able to keep my job if I don't find housing. I've been on every wait list for apartments. They all have 2-year waiting lists. I'm working with my social worker. I've been calling different places every day and not getting return phone calls back. I've done my part of reaching out, speaking out, doing the footwork, finding a job and everything else, but it all comes down to the same old housing situation.
This was a hands-on experience. This taught us a lot about working with those who don't have a home, a house. Actually, we call them houseless because our church is their home. They just don't have a house. As a pastor, what I took from the shelter when I was doing my regular meeting with the houseless people, they would always come to me, one or another, and put their hand on my shoulder and say, you're doing well. You're doing well, Pastor. You're doing very well. And somehow or another, counting with the approval of this houseless community, became more important to me than counting with the approval of the leadership council or even the city council. And I will never forget that.
We're looking for a hand up, not a handout, a direction, a path, somewhere to go. And that's what we need. Would that help? It would get a whole lot of people off the street. And opening up the churches, it gives us a place, a stable place to stay at temporarily until we can move on. And that's what we're trying to do, is just move forward. Because we have a life that we have to live. And we can't live it being, homeless and trying to survive. It's just not easy. It doesn't work.
We had a group of other churches, or rather communities of faith, including a synagogue and a Mormon church, bringing dinner to them every night. The church became a more important place for them and for us too. It's not just a place to open on Sundays and to worship or to study the Bible. It's a place to do community, to be a community, and to be a healing community.
Having been homeless for almost 3 years, I realized that as people from all different types of places, like people that just lost their job, they can't afford housing because it's so high, and now I'm very compassionate to the effort, and I have been part of the cause to fight the effort.
It really was a very positive experience. In fact, last week I was going to McDonald's and there was a gentleman hustling for money, and I said, can I buy you a hamburger? And he looked at me, yes, that would be great. So I think my experience with the shelter has made me a more open and intuitive person, a lot more accepting of the plight of the homeless. Just hearing their stories, two of the ladies who work full-time, they couldn't afford rent in San Jose. I think it made me a better Catholic and a better Christian because of it.
And I am grateful for having this opportunity and for being allowed to be here. I really appreciate all the kindness and love and generosity that I've received. Thank you.
And that's the benefit of having churches involved, is they can sustain longer-term relationships, which I think is what community is, what everybody needs.
The idea was if people were going to stay overnight somewhere, that it would be logical and meaningful if they had a place to spend the day, because it would still rain during the day.
We decided that we would do a warming center, and we talked about it at church. And at first, there was a lot of concern around that. And as soon as they saw what the plan was, how we were going to manage things from day to day, they completely relaxed, and within 5 weeks we went from this nervousness to let's get started.
We set up cots for people to sleep. It's one of those things you don't really realize, right? People who've been on the streets just aren't getting enough rest, and so even though they had a place to stay overnight, they still needed downtime of time to rest.
We set up Wi-Fi for folks so they could do their work, their housing, looking for housing. If they wanted to play a game, they could play a game. We had an area for movies that folks could sit back and watch movies. We had puzzles, jigsaw puzzles out, lots of magazines and books. And we basically just let them on their own. They just decided what they wanted to do.
They're so helpful in so many ways, in so many different ways, from how to teaching to learning stuff from them with computers. If we don't know something, they'll help us, and they'll sit there until we get it, and they go an extra mile for us.
That one-on-one connection, which is so missing in people's lives, is an important thing that we as members of the church can provide and even should provide. It's part of our calling. And it doesn't cost money, and it doesn't cost anything fancy. It's just sitting down, in 2 chairs across the table from somebody and having a conversation.
It gives us hope. It gives us hope that we can do it, not look backward where we came from, but to keep going forward, to move and to strive to be somewhere or get out of our situation. And the guidance and everything here has been awesome.
We need to be a place of hope, and that our folks, our guests, don't feel like, they're sort of thrown away garbage. They're low priority. We are a community, and we take care of each other. And I want us to do this again and do it better. And really grow it and open up, and people can be excited about really what they can do instead of being frustrated about what they can't.
Being on the streets does have its challenges. Life is a challenge. But, no matter how difficult life is out here on the street, I'm still going to make the best of it the best way I know how. That's the way I'm doing my life, which I'm going forward and just meeting the challenges head on and just doing the best as I can in the way I know how to do it.
It's made me just so much more aware of the homeless in general. I see the homeless on the streets more readily. So many of us see them but don't see them. They're there, but we don't recognize them.
The last day we had not really a service, but we sat in a circle and shared the things that we had learned and in the process, and told each other what we meant to each other, and the guests as well as the volunteers. And we had a meal together and said our goodbyes, but it was very painful because they didn't know where they were going.
We decided to open a safe park for unhoused people who live in their car. So we averaged about between 7 and 10 cars a night, and we served probably a total of 35 to 40 people during a 10-week period. So we provided restrooms for them. We provided a kitchen where they could come and pick up a snack, prepare breakfast, prepare lunch, and every night we gathered for dinner. That was provided by our parishioners. So we had dinner together.
It's stressful finding a place to park your car. I mean, you just can't park it anywhere. And sometimes people will think, what are you doing in our neighborhood or the store as a parking lot of a public store, the police come around. It's pretty stressful. And so I think this Safe Park program is pretty neat. I mean, I think it'll help a lot of people. It relieves you from always thinking, what's my next move? Where am I going to eat? What am I going to sleep at? If you got rid of those two, then you got time to think about other things you have to do.
So we had a coordinator. There were volunteers that ended up volunteering throughout the 10 weeks. We provided fellowship for our guests. We tried to integrate them into what was already going on in the parish as well.
Safe Park has meant the world. I've been actually able to sleep through a night when I couldn't before. I'm almost 65. I'm disabled and alone. And on the street, I run into a lot of harassment, not just from the police, but from others on the street.
You don't have even a place to wash your hands unless you go drive to fast food. That's where you go to wash your hands, to the simple things that you're so used to every day taking for granted.
People got to hear individual stories about individual people and couples who are living on our streets, who are living in their cars. Some people had full-time jobs. They worked. Not only did they work, but they worked evenings, didn't get off until midnight or 1. And most shelters are closed because of a particular curfew that they have to have.
Wake up refreshed and be able to handle my business from day to day with enough rest and clarity for my day. Some people genuinely want better. We don't want to just survive. We want to live and have a shot at bettering ourselves. And that's what this program has done for those like myself, is give us a chance to live and to know that people genuinely care about us, not knowing us from Adam or Eve, but they treat us no differently than they treat their fellow men, their brothers and sisters in Christ.
People have gotten into this situation for a variety of reasons. Illness being one of them, one of the greatest ones that we saw. People who suffered from PTS.
It's a great experience because as you meet people that are in the car park and you hear some of their stories, you understand why they're here. It also gives you kind of hope because you see things that are being done to help people. And you also see that spreading and growing. So maybe there's a lot of hope that this problem can be resolved.
It raised great awareness in the community about the problem and what people have to do just to survive. It raises issues about the lack of housing and affordable housing in Santa Clara County. How much does it take for people to rent even a room? I think the guests were transformed in the sense that we worked hard to ask them what they needed, not what we thought they needed. So they appreciated that. I think mutual respect grew among our community and our guests.
For those who have never experienced being homeless, I want you to go home, take all your credit cards and leave them in the house. Take your worst pair of jeans that you have, put them on, go in your car and find a crummy neighborhood and sit there till 12 o'clock at night and tell me how comfortable you are. And just try and pretend that now that's all that you own. Your home, you no longer have a home.
I think that there's a real need not only for shelters and for people to live in shelters, but there's a real need for people to live in their cars because that's the last possession that they have, basically, and providing a safe place where they can sleep for 7 to 8 hours uninterrupted with no one asking them to move, no one banging on their windows, no one harassing them.
So I can't even count how many things that I am so grateful for to have been able to come here and spend the night. And always to know that there's a warm meal there, you know, and
Kind word.
kindness, like you just don't even remember people are kind when you're out in the street because you don't come across it, and you come here and they're all so very kind to all of us.
Makes a big difference. Makes you feel human again.
Yes.
What are you willing to do to help build a more healing community for all of our neighbors? Please consider offering shelter by showing this video to your community, faith leaders, and social justice committee. If each of us took just a few people in, countless lives could be saved and suffering for many greatly eased. By attending our collaborative meetings, we can help you answer the questions and concerns you may have in how to start sheltering and to get further involved. Please visit our website or Facebook page for our current meeting schedule. All are welcome to attend.